This is the GPL podcast from GopherPuckLive.com. This podcast is sponsored by Jerry Peters and First Class Mortgage. Our expertise, your peace of mind. Visit us at firstclassmortgage.com. Now let's start the show with your hosts, Jupiter and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL podcast, episode number 197. Well, Vigs, it was a interesting weekend. We've got a lot to talk about. I think we should just bring on our guest because I'm sure he's going to have a lot of insight on what may have happened this past weekend. What do you think?
Maybe just a little bit. He's kind of an expert on NCHC hockey and the way the game's played.
Our guest this week is Bruce Sisky, the voice of the Bulldogs. And there he is. Bruce, how are you doing, man?
What's going on, fellas? Good to be back.
It's nice to have you back. It's your second time on the show. We're glad to have you.
But it feels like about 15 or 20. So.
Oh, jeez. Well, you know what? It's great because you interact with all the fans on Twitter, even us little Gopher fans, and over the years we've ribbed each other, and we just have a fun with each other, and it's been that way. And people are like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "That's just what we do. We have fun."
Isn't this at the core? Isn't this supposed to be fun?
Yes, totally.
I know, shocking revelation that somebody would try to have fun doing this. Honestly.
I had the little intro picture of you waving at me from the last time we were up in Duluth, and it's just, I just like to have fun with it. I had somebody saying, "Oh, how could you bring on Bruce? I don't like him at all." I'm like going, "Really?
What happened to the other picture I sent you?"
Yeah. Viggs, he sent me a picture of him holding up the national title trophy.
Yeah.
It's nice to see those distributed around the state of Minnesota. Maybe more teams.
I would agree.
Maybe more teams in the state could go ahead and win a title, right?
Although I'd be fine if we just won the rest of them. It's fine. It doesn't get old. I promise you that.
No, it doesn't get old. It definitely doesn't get old.
Everyone's living a little bit different.
Both of our squads, the Bulldogs and the Gophers, had quite adventurous weekends. Let's start with the Gophers, Vigs. St. Cloud State, home and home. Whew, that was some fun hockey, barring the controversial end.
Even the controversial end was fun, but I do think that we saw the potential of this year's Gopher hockey team. We saw them be fast. We saw them get hard on the forecheck. We saw some goal scoring from them. Good special teams for the most part. Pretty good goaltending when it mattered. Is exciting hockey. It's that 45 seconds of hell that Bob Motzko wants to play in D1 hockey, and we saw some of that for a lot of the weekend. Again, turnovers. It's the one thing that really hurts Gopher hockey when they're trying to force the game and create offense when maybe it's not there. And that really cost them.
It certainly did. And, we'll get to the controversy here in a bit. But on the other side, the Dogs held was the icebreaker up there at Amsoil, the tournament that Minnesota was supposed to be in, but then had to back out of once it was delayed a year. Oh, wow. But Minnesota's replacement was a pretty good team there, Bruce.
Yeah, I'd say so. I'll just say it like this. I was prepared for a very good team. I knew Michigan was good. I did not expect the maturity that I saw from the young guys on that team. They had a couple different points in the weekend. Scott Stanley likes to talk about, things go one of two ways. They had a few of those moments. Michigan did. They fell behind early against us. They weren't playing well. They had nothing going. I think shots were 9-zip at one point. Then in the championship game against Minnesota State, Ryan Sandelin, I think I've heard that name before, scored a power play goal late in the second period. They had a 2-1 lead going into the third. And, all the momentum at that point is with Minnesota State. They were playing their game. They were playing very well. And Michigan came out in the third, put up 2, and they won. They put the foot on the throat against us as soon as Noah Cates got kicked out of the game. That's a sign of a really good, mature team. They got a good young old mix on that Michigan squad. They got good leadership. Of course, Mel's a great coach. We all know that. So it'll be a really interesting race, I think, in the Big Ten.
Well, I know it's going to be fun. I mean, you guys had a great weekend up there, and then obviously down here, great hockey. It was just a highly skilled series, Vigs, that unfortunately ended rather badly. Not for the Gophers, but badly just for what should have been called.
Well, there is a little bit of debate on what should have been called, and it's always hard to tell in these hockey games how difficult it is to make these calls. We saw a couple of plays earlier before the overtime where maybe some St. Cloud players went down a little bit easy on the Walker penalty and the Myers penalty and kind of baited the officials into a call. And so then when you get in the overtime situation, maybe it's like fool me once, fool me twice, not fool me again. And maybe that's a little bit in the ref's mind about how things are going. And at that point, if he does call 2-2, it's 3-on-3 OT. So it's just going to stay 3-on-3 OT. It's not really a big impact unless somebody stops playing. That's something that can be out there too. It was distracting to the end of the game. I think what's even more distracting is what's going on between the coaches and the players and things that came after the game, where you've got Nolan Walker saying someone from the team apologized about the way it ended and maybe the blown call. You've got Bob calling out Nick Perbix in his postgame audio, which he later apologized for. But, hockey is a game of good calls and bad calls. We've seen a lot of those in University of Minnesota and University of Minnesota-Duluth happen over the years too. And, in the end, it is probably going to even out. No ref goes into a game thinking, I want to blow this call. So it's very unusual for a league to make a statement like the NCHC did afterwards.
I think there was a lot of pressure. Even it was just social media pressure. I think there was a lot of pressure on the league to say something because of the magnitude of what happened. If you go back and watch that clip, though, what I think is interesting, and I'll stand up for one guy in our league. It's Tommy Stearns. He's a darn good ref, good guy, and he was the guy in the corner. If you go back and watch that clip, he has no chance of being able to see the jersey of Nick Perbix being tugged because he is standing where Nick Perbix is facing him head on. He can't see behind Nick Perbix where Blake McLaughlin is pulling on his jersey. So all he sees is the sticks out and Perbix falls down. And he might be thinking exactly what Vieg said, where we've already seen a couple possible dives that we called penalties in this game. I'm not going to do that here and potentially decide the game in overtime. And I can't speak for the other ref who was out in the neutral zone and what he saw or didn't see, but it's pretty clear to me watching that Tommy Stearns did not see the tug on the jersey. And if you didn't see it as a referee, as you guys know, you aren't supposed to call what you don't see. You're not supposed to assume that something happened that you didn't see happen.
Well, I actually have the clip here. I know for people watching, you'll be able to watch it. People listening a little later, well, sorry.
You've seen it somewhere. Come on.
Yeah, you definitely can see it. Here's what happened.
And they do.
Henches for St. Cloud, Walker for Minnesota. Oh, come on.
How do they not call
Are
that?
you kidding me?
Here's McLaughlin walking in. Ran over by Perbix. Sammy Walker scores and wins it.
Whew. That is...
Well, that's that shows it there. Yes, the ref in the corner. The only problem I had with that, Bruce, is the ref in the corner did point as if he was diving. I'm like,
Right,
okay, if you're going to do that, wouldn't that be a penalty? If he's even marking, hey, you're taking a dive, wouldn't that be a penalty?
When's the last time you saw diving called by itself?
Yeah.
I'm just being honest. I mean,
it
doesn't happen. So
yeah.
If you didn't see what led to the dive, which was in this case, it wasn't a dive, obviously. Nick Perbix did not dive. Let me make that clear. But if you think that he dove, because Blake's stick is out, if you watch that clip, if you think maybe it was a little tug and Perbix fell it and decided I'm just going to go flying, then you didn't see, though, the stick tug. So you don't know what happened. Again, you're not supposed to call what you don't see, and nobody ever calls diving by itself, and they're certainly not going to start doing it in overtime.
No diving by itself. We wish we could have seen that in the past with old Jeremy Earl there, Viggs.
I do think embellishments should be called, though.
I agree.
I want that out of the game. We've seen it throughout the history of hockey, players taking it too far, and it really impacts the game and it makes it difficult.
The problem with it is that it is very difficult, to me at least, to legislate, especially live action. The NHL tries to go back and say, well, we got the clip, so-and-so took a dive. It's a $2,000 fine that escalates to a potential suspension. I just don't know how you can ask these amateur hockey officials to legislate something like that in real time with no benefit of replay. And I don't want them looking at that on replay. I don't need the game up any more than it already is.
Here's a slightly different call of that same instant.
Nick Perbix. Oh, he rounds the net. There's no penalty call as he's hooked to the ice. Gophers get the puck. How do you not call that? Now in front, Walker says he scores. The Gophers win, and the officials just blew it. Totally blew it.
The officials just blew it. Obviously, Bruce, you know what it's like. You're the announcer for the Bulldogs. You're going to be more homer for them. But in this instance, Wally's almost like, are you kidding me? Did that just happen?
Yeah. I've never been there in that spot at the end of a game. I've been there during games where I can't believe they just called that on the other team. And I'll be honest about it. I figure the audience needs to know that was a bad call, whether it goes like for or against the team that they want to win doesn't matter. My job's not to edit that out of it. It's or to try to defend a bad call. If I know it's a bad call, I'm going to say it's a bad call. I don't care who it's on. Plus, I have no credibility if I don't say, if something goes against the Gophers I don't agree with, I have no credibility if I just decide to ignore that. Of course, some would say I have no credibility anyway, but whatever.
Let's put a cap on it, Viggs. What can you say? I mean, Moscow did come back today and says I don't know if anyone saw that. No one saw it. Well, everyone on camera who saw it on TV had the right angle. We don't know where the second. I don't remember where the second referee was. He may have been on that same side of the ice. Who knows?
He was probably out in the neutral zone no matter what. I don't know exactly where he was, but he was not certainly not in the zone.
Viggs, is there something to say about they kept playing? It ended up being 2-on-3 and ended up being a 1-on-0 with Walker in front of the net scoring the winning goal.
Yeah, I think St. Cloud just lost their composure there at the end. They did kind of play it, and they switched who they were covering. In 3-on-3, in the NHL, they actually practice a lot of man-to-man coverage in those situations, so you get used to it. So when it does happen, you know how to switch guys and continue to play defense. They didn't do that there. They just passed the guy off and let him go to the net. And I kind of feel like if it was the flip call, I think Wally would have been like, what is he doing? He's letting that guy go to the net all by himself. He would just be like, you got to keep playing. I feel like that would have been the take from him if the roles were reversed and he was calling the St. Cloud game.
I tell you one thing, though, Bruce, those St. Cloud players will never do that again. They will play till the whistle.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lesson that will be reminded to them every time that they're shown that clip. I'm sure it was brought up all week. And both things can be true. That can be a bad miss by the officials, which it was, and St. Cloud needs to learn from that to play to the whistle. And there was no whistle. If you watch it again, Blake McLaughlin stopped for a second too. he was looking around, going, "Where's the whistle?" Certain that as soon as he touched that puck, he was going to go sit for 2 minutes or less. And as soon as he realized there was no arm in the air, he's like, "Oh, okay, I'll take the puck and go play."
I do think Blake looks and goes, "He dove." Maybe he's like, he dove. Maybe. I mean, that's one thing I think of when I see Blake make that reaction. He's like, I didn't pull him that hard. And that's why, as I teased the podcast today, I pulled that picture of Perbix falling, chasing a puck back on the power play from Friday night. Because, ice is slippery. You catch an edge. It's easy to go down. It doesn't necessarily take a jersey pull to lose your edge. It's complicated.
Yeah.
And you can't blame the players. You just got to keep playing. They won. This time it is, unfortunately, purely on the refs. You can understand why he missed it. in that instance, the guy in the neutral zone should have called it. What can you do? Yeah. And yes, I messed up his name. It's Robbie Earl, not Jeremy Earl.
I can't believe I didn't catch that. I'm so mad at myself.
Oh, jeez. Oh, yeah. I already had people saying Jeremy Earl.
I've been joke for all those years, and I completely forgot the guy's name. And he played for the Wild, for crying out loud.
Dove for the Wild?
He did that too. Yeah.
I'm sorry. He was bad.
When you have people bringing diver down flags to the rink, you've got a little bit of a reputation. But I just want to say, after all this, it only costs St. Cloud 5% of a win. Right. Once it gets into overtime, it's a 55% of a win to the winning team and 45% of a win to the losing team. The players got really emotional about it, and I think Bob's even trying to pump the tires. He's like, each team got to win. Well, not really. You go to overtime, you lose that half win basically.
Yeah, and I think it's on the other side of it. I think from an emotional standpoint, it's easy to forget that, especially when it's a new thing. These kids aren't thinking about, getting an extra 5% of a win when they go out there for overtime against the Gophers, especially. They're thinking about beating the Gophers, and, they'd have beat them. It would have been a sweep. And yes, it would have been, whatever the percentages line up to be for those two games for a sweep, but it still would have been a sweep in St. Cloud's eyes and those players' eyes. So I get that part of it too.
So obviously you guys had Michigan up there this weekend. Can you give us more of a scout on that team? Because
do I have to?
Yeah, you do, because people saying, hey, they're the paper champions, but you know what? They're putting it together awfully quick here. They've been behind in games. They've come back. They've blown out teams. They're pretty disciplined for being so young.
They are. And they – I said, as soon as Noah Cates got kicked out of that game on Friday, they saw the door cracked open. They kicked it down, and they did not look back. And that's a credit to them for sure. The other thing that I would say about Michigan is, you hear all about Owen Power and you hear about Matty Beniers, and trust me, they're both good. Beniers was especially good this past weekend. Kent Johnson was the best player on the ice last Friday against us, and it might not have been close. And Luke Hughes was the best defenseman on the ice last weekend in both games, I thought. And I didn't think it was very close. Luke Hughes was phenomenal. They're both very, very good. You throw in all the Brisson, who was a first-round pick last year, and he had a great weekend. They've got depth. They've got that young old mix. I already mentioned that. And they're older guys. They play roles. They kill penalties. They got leaders. And Nick Blankenberg's a great defensive partner for Owen Power, smaller defenseman. He can really move. He's got a good shot. He's a smart player. Owen Power's going to learn playing with him. I think it's almost the perfect storm in how that team is built. And my one concern with them is if one of these guys gets hurt, do they start thinking too much about what's next? Does their eye come off the target because something happened? Nobody wants to screw this up, and I certainly understand that. But that 1 foot out the door thing, which could happen really at any point, is about the only thing that I think trips Michigan outside of maybe goaltending. But Portillo had a really good weekend. He's their guy. If his game goes to crap, I don't know what they have for options behind him, if they even really have options. They didn't play anybody else up here. Portillo was very good in both games, so. That's the other concern that you have is do they have another quality goaltender they can use if they have to?
And I'm guessing Minnesota State looked like Minnesota State of recent years.
They just don't have a lot of holes. There's not a lot of things they can't do. They've got 4 lines. They've got 3 defensive pairings. Dryden McKay, he's just Dryden McKay. And I think part of the reason why he's so underrated is because people take it for granted now. He's just so good. He's so effective every single time he's out there. It's hard to consistently get a lot of chances against him. And when you get those chances, he stops them. That's kind of what makes Michigan's comeback all the more impressive is Minnesota State is such a good, strong, defensive-minded team. They're great in their own zone. And Michigan found a way to pop a couple in there in that third period. I certainly didn't think they were going to do that, and that's a credit to Michigan. But that's a phenomenal Minnesota State team. Mike Hastings always does things the right way. We got 5 pretty doggone good teams in this state, guys.
Yes.
And I don't want to dog St. Thomas. I think they're going to get a lot better this year. Rico's going to get them going. It's just going to take time. That's a tough thing to try to build a D1 program basically from scratch in the amount of time that they had to do it. But I think St. Thomas will eventually get there too.
How about an all Minnesota Frozen Four, Vigs?
I mean, why not? 4 Minnesota teams in the top 5 in the polls lately. They all deserve to be there.
If you keep them all highly ranked, they won't be in the same region. Because what was it? Your South Dakota region just a few years ago, Bruce?
Yeah,
3 teams there.
Yeah, and then Air Force, which was no slouch by the way either. So.
No.
Yeah, last year was neat, and how close we came to having an all Minnesota Frozen Four. It would be awesome if that could happen. Find a way to make it work. And these are heady times for Minnesota college hockey. There's no doubt about that.
Vigs, I got something for you here. A little housekeeping. We got a couple questions from our guy Tim Simplot that we didn't get to last week, and it's still relevant, definitely. So I want to get to his questions. His first question regarding ticket sales. I know a lot of people want cheaper tickets. Would there be a stigma if you were to universally lower ticket prices? I'm no expert, but it seems like you don't see a lot of pro or college teams lowering prices.
You don't right now, and every dollar counts for the University of Minnesota, as I'm sure all college athletic departments are thinking. And the fact is that the seats between the blue lines and the clubroom seats that are the most expensive, they don't have a hard time selling those tickets. If you look for tickets in those sections on game night, especially for these games like St. Cloud and Minnesota-Duluth, and some people think Notre Dame's not a big draw, but there's a lot of Notre Dame fans in the Twin Cities. Those tickets are all going to be sold. And they've tried to slash tickets in the corners and on the ends. Basically, $20, $15, group sales down to $10 a ticket. And people just aren't buying the tickets at that price. I know my Youth Hockey Association got an email this week asking us if we wanted to buy group tickets. And there are games where we can get in for $10 a kid. And people just aren't getting to that. I think there's a little bit of pandemic fatigue right now with people cautious about buying tickets. Even the Wild didn't sell out their home opener, I think, until almost puck drop, and maybe some of those tickets were distributed and not sold. So that's a real factor.
How's it going there up in Duluth, Bruce?
We had roughly 2,400 unsold, I think, for the Bemidji game, but then it was up a little bit last weekend for the Icebreaker. They weren't full, that's for sure. The student section's full. We sold a record number of student season tickets this season. They've been at every one of the 3 home games, and they have been on their game each time, which has been awesome. It's been a great atmosphere, even though we've had a fair number of empty seats. This one is SRO on Saturday, though. They've already sold out all the seats, and they've begun selling standing room for Saturday night.
And I know Minnesota has been overselling their student section because they've been awesome so far at Marriott Arena. I know they sold about 2,500 seats to the students just this past game for St. Cloud, and I expect they'll be doing the same thing here for Duluth.
Oh, here we go. Our friend Amy, for comparison, what's the going rate for non-blue line tickets for you and for both schools? Vigs, for Minnesota, some of those games are $50, $60, $70.
Well, I think that's for the big games. For
Yes.
UMD and St. Cloud, when you're looking at most of the other games, it's going to be $20, $30. People don't want to compare that to the Minnesota Wild, but those same seats for the Wild games are like $150. For the Blackhawks, it's $200 for lower level corners. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think it's a lot of other things. Like I know the parking's been a big deal for people around campus. So if you're coming to the game, don't try to show up at 6:45 and expect to get there for puck drop.
Well, I definitely know that the average cost, compared to other Big Ten schools, is higher if you just take, the whole bowl into consideration. So, it
was $40 for the Gopher game up here, flat number for every seat. So, and they're selling the standing room for the same price. I don't know how many of those they've gotten rid of today. That just went, I think yesterday afternoon they started selling those. So, it's $40 is about as high as it'll go here. I think they've gone 45 for some North Dakota games in the past, but that's about the ceiling at this point. I haven't. Usually for us, it's 25 to 30 range, somewhere in there.
The average cost across the board for like just Big Ten games. I did a price thing. It looks like on average, Minnesota is $19 more expensive than every other Big Ten school.
Wow.
And funny thing is that Wisconsin is like one of the lowest. Their tickets range between $20 and $24.
Well, if you look at the crowd they had for Army last weekend, they probably should charge even less. I'm just saying. I mean, let's just say Thursday night hockey at the Kohl Center last week wasn't exactly a smashing hit.
Oh boy!
And I felt bad. I mean, it stunk to see that because I think I've told this story to you guys before. I've been in that building. You guys have probably been in that building when it's full. And
yes.
There aren't a lot of buildings as great as the Kohl Center when that thing gets packed and they got that 3-tier student section full. And that's a special college hockey atmosphere. And we were down there not last season because we didn't go anywhere last season, but 2 years ago we went down there the Cole Caulfield's freshman year, that group. And they swept us. It was not fun, but they had 10,000 probably for each of those games. It was nice to see some life back in that building, and then to see the pictures for the Army series last week, it was almost depressing.
The funny thing is, Vigs is like we talked about. The students have shown up. Yes, they've oversold it a bit, but it was weird to see that series, and the whole end was pretty full this past weekend.
Yeah,
that's a lot of seats. That's 1,500 seats?
1,500, 1,700 seats, and they're filling it. They're doing the same thing at the football games, too. So, the students are anxious to support their teams. I'm expecting at Amsoil this weekend, we're going to see some rowdy students showing up for warm-ups and providing an atmosphere for the visiting team that you just don't get in many places.
I can guarantee that's going to happen because it happened for Bemidji and it happened for Michigan and Providence already. So they will be there. They were there last Saturday to gum up Michigan's team picture with the Icebreaker Championship trophy. So. Yeah, I'm not going to advocate nor condone what they did, but they did it.
People need to get over it. It's students.
Right. Well,
they're having fun. You know what?
Yes, exactly. And as I told somebody, it's a lesson learned for whoever decided, let's take a picture in front of the other team's student section to not do that. It's a bad idea every time.
Well,
or it's a memory. It's a memory.
Or it's a memory. Yeah, it could be true too.
Well, before we get into the big home and home series this weekend, we need to hear from our sponsor.
Hey fellow GPLers, Jerry Peters here from First Class Mortgage. Have you refinanced your home in the last 12 months? If you haven't, chances are you should. Record low interest rates and skyrocketing home values make this the perfect time to remove monthly PMI while improving your interest rate at the same time. You can also use the equity in your home to finance those home improvement projects. Or you can consolidate high interest rate credit cards into one new low monthly payment. To hear more, call or text me today at 612-940-3291. You can email me at jerry@firstclasscorp.com, or you could go to firstclassmortgage.com to fill out a free online application. Mention the GPL podcast and receive a $300 closing cost credit. Some restrictions do apply. First Class Mortgage's NMLS number is 322842-480200. This is not an agreement to lock into an interest rate under Minnesota law. First Class Mortgage is an equal housing lender.
And, of course, we thank Jerry for sponsoring the GPL podcast. Well, guys, here we go. Another home and home, Minnesota-Duluth and Minnesota Golden Gophers. I got to say right offhand, Vig's already going with the beer of the week here. Wow. Good. Look at that. Well, hold on there, Vig's. Let's give it as a proper view here. There we go. Look at that.
This is the Bent Paddle double shot, double black, barrel-aged beer. This one's from 2017 here. So it's been sitting around for a while. And because, it's a special weeknight edition of GPL podcast at 6. Let's go early. Cheers.
Yeah, I got some pop here. That's all.
That's water. It's really exciting.
So, Bruce, I gotta say, I still hate the home and home.
You know what?
I love weekend there or weekend here.
I completely understand your perspective. But I've gotten to a point in my life where I enjoy the fact that I know that for the next 2 weeks, I'm sleeping in my own bed every night. And so I'm not going to complain about, driving down Friday, calling a game, driving back and sleep in my own bed afterwards. So I get I want the weekends. I understand that. If it ever goes back to that, I'll be all in, whatever. I think our fans, there's probably a bunch that agree with you that would rather go down there for a weekend and then have you guys come up next year for a weekend. But this is the lot that we have right now, and it the number of home and homes that we've had with Bemidji, we have one with Minnesota State this year. You guys almost every year it seems we play home and home. It seems like that's the direction it's going, and if that's what has to happen to make these games happen, I'm all for it. I'd rather play Bemidji and you guys and Minnesota State every year than be going out east.
Well, I think it's kind of selfish with guys like you and me because we loved going up there for the entire weekend and just making a big party of it.
Yeah, I mean, Duluth's a great town to spend a whole weekend there. I understand it from the AD's perspective. They want these matchups on their season tickets to sell.
Yep.
They don't want to have a year off where maybe 1 year they have to travel and then they miss those 2 games and trying to figure out the schedule with all the teams, it gets challenging. I talked to Bob Onsko about this on Tuesday, asking him what he thought about non-conference scheduling. He's like, it's too bad that we can't play every Minnesota team every year, so we have to rotate them through. And Bob said he does want to go out east once every 4 years. So I think that means he's going to be trying to fit that in because he thinks it's important for teams in Minnesota to travel out there. If you play 4 years, you should go out there at least once.
I agree with that, and Scott's been really good about that here, making sure that we've got some sort of a trip somewhere at least every other year. This is a rare year where I think for a number of different reasons, it's just the way the schedule worked out that we don't have any air travel for a non-conference game, but it's been done before. I'm sure it'll be done again. From a student experience standpoint, I get it. And then you throw in the pairwise ramifications. As we mentioned on Saturday, Providence is the only Eastern team UMD is going to play all season. So beating Providence could be very significant in the pairwise because, as you guys know, these non-conference games are huge to begin with. And when you start playing teams outside your region, those matter even more, feels like.
They definitely do. They definitely do. But, we talk about that scheduling, V's. Have you heard anything about, with COVID and things kind of messing things up? I mean, how is that going to balance out for Minnesota? They went to CC a couple years ago. Are CC coming here? Alaska Fairbanks came in. Does that mean they want to go up there and maybe get those extra games? Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard anything yet other than everything's still kind of in flux. CC is going through a coaching change. With Haviland leaving and Maylock coming in for them. So, it's going to be up to those coaches to figure out how they want to manage their schedules. I think a lot of people are going to be going out to Arizona State the next couple of years once they get their rink built after they played that Big Ten schedule, basically. So, they'll be figuring things out, and I'll be digging here eventually.
For those of you watching live on either Facebook or YouTube, if you have any great questions for us, just let us know. We'll try to get it up on the podcast, and we'll try to answer them. We've been trying to do that more. I know we've got that second question from Tim there. Let me get to it here, Viggs, because, we promised him, and he put his time and effort into it. He says, you mentioned that we'll likely lose some players to the junior tournament. I know it's early, but who do you think we lose? I have to think Lucius is an automatic, even though he hasn't played a game yet. But who are we looking at for the juniors to be gone?
I think Matthew Nyes is definitely going to be a player for the World Junior team. I think his coming out party started with the summer showcase. He really dominated at that event and impressed USA Hockey. I think everybody was impressed with that performance. And then, of course, Brock Faber, who has probably been the most steady Gopher defenseman this year. We talk about a lot of Gophers losing their heads in Dinkytown for the games. Not Brock. He has been locked in and the most reliable player for them on the blue line.
How's it looking for the Duluth side? You going to lose any guys this Christmas time?
Great question. I would think Wyatt Kaiser's got to be under some consideration there. I know Connor Kelly's gotten some looks as well. He had a phenomenal second half last season, but Wyatt's always kind of been the headline guy from that freshman class last year, and he's off to a great start. I'm sure he'd like to contribute more offensively, but boy, he's been good defensively here. Him and Louis Rail have been a very good top pair here in the first few games of the season.
Let's get to the games, guys. What's going to happen this weekend? We've got the big ice on Friday. We've got the small ice on Saturday. I think we should just go smaller ice and just go over to the deck for that. Let's just go real small.
I don't know that I want to sit back in that press box again. I kind of like my spot now, to be honest with you.
That's actually a pretty good spot to be. It's a
great spot.
It's a great spot. I noticed, there, and even, you go to Ritter Arena at Mariucci, you're right on top of the ice there. So it's a good spots. Hockey-wise, Vigs, what can we expect here this weekend? Let's start with, the Friday game in Mariucci.
I think for Minnesota, it's cutting down on those turnovers. I know that UMD always plays a very disciplined game against Minnesota, and it can turn into that rock fight, where each team gets the rock, puts it over the red line, puts it deep, tries to get the other team to make a mistake. Your goal, get that rock back, get to the red line, put it over their goal line, and try to make them make a mistake. I think what happens with Minnesota too often is a player gets that rock, and they're like, I could totally take that to the net. And the other team just counters it and goes the other way, and now all of a sudden you're chasing the game. So I think it's going to be key for Minnesota not to be tempted to chase offense, because I think against St. Cloud on Friday night, they were doing a great job of staying patient with their game. They were getting scoring chances just from the flow of play, allowing their talent to shine, and then they tie the game, and somebody gets a little too creative, turns over a puck, St. Cloud gets the lead back. Minnesota has chances to maybe tie it up, but they never do. So I think that's a good lesson for them to be patient.
And Bruce, that's kind of really the key and even just college hockey itself, the mistakes. I mean, I think that's what makes college hockey a little more entertaining than maybe the pro level at times. It's those mistakes that can really open up a game and really change a game that you don't see at the higher level.
Yeah, that's certainly a big part of it, and UMD feasts on those mistakes, as being said. We've seen that for many, many years, and I know Scott Sandelin's preaching the same thing. He knows that the Gophers are going to prey on those mistakes as well, and the key is to move that puck north and make sure that it gets all the way north, and even if you can't get a great scoring chance, that you're making them go 200 feet with it, and the Gophers are going to do a great job protecting the middle of the ice, and I think You got some guys on UMD that are great on the walls, and I know that the big sheet, it doesn't feel like it matters as much. That puck ends up on the wall a lot. You still got to win possession over there. Mm-hmm. Good luck beating Noah Cates one of those battles.
I think one of the big keys for Minnesota is to keep the puck in safe spots. I think we heard from Brock Faber after the game on Friday. He's like, obviously St. Cloud did their pre-scout because they were on us at the points. They know that we get the puck and we want to walk it to the middle. Well, Friday night, they quickly learned that was not going to be an option. Lacombe lost the puck on one of those situations. St. Cloud went down and scored. I think you noticed the rest of the weekend, the defensemen were much more cautious about when they took it to the middle, what they did with the puck. After they had 15 shots blocked on Friday night, they were much more methodical, working the puck down low and back to the wall and getting into a lower cycle. So I think that's something to watch this weekend to see if Minnesota keeps doing that, because I expect kind of a similar game plan from UMD.
Oh, I don't have any doubt that's going to be the route that they try to go, and we'll see. We'll see who. It's a test of wills, right? We'll see. See who breaks first.
We got a question for you there, Bruce. Anthony Oberstar. Do you think this is Biondi's last season for the Bulldogs, or do you think he sticks around for another year?
I think he sticks around for at least another year. Keep in mind, he's his second year out of high school, so he's got a lot of developing to do. He's off to a very good start this season on that third line with Quinn Olson and Dominic James, but there's more to get to with Blake Biondi, and I think you'll be seeing him doing that in a Bulldog uniform.
All right, Vigs. Saturday night up at Amsoil. I still want to call it the deck, but it's not. Tighter ice for Minnesota.
I call it Mariucci, but they tell me I got to call it 3M Arena. So
I never do it. I know Vigo will. I never do. It's Mariucci to me.
They paid a lot of money for those rights.
I know.
They did. They paid a lot of money, and
I work at 3M.
They could be paying you that money instead.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably why you're doing it out of spite.
So. Anyway, up to Amsoil they go Saturday night. We just learned this afternoon that game is actually going to be on local TV Looks like Xfinity is going to put it up on there, picking up the Duluth Bulldog broadcast on Xfinity 999 right up at the top there. So those people who have Xfinity, you can watch the games locally. Bruce, you know what it's like for Minnesota fans now. I mean, they're used to TV every game.
Yeah.
And boy, once, the leagues broke up and things changed, they all come to either me or the University of Minnesota. Why aren't these games on TV? Why aren't these games on TV? And it's like they just don't get it. That they don't have the control they used to back in the WCHA days.
Yep. Yeah, it's just a different time, right? I mean, game like this, the home team owns the rights, and it's not like it used to be where the home team might not be televising, and here comes Midwest Sports Channel with Frank and Tom, and that take over your building for a couple of days and do the games. Those days have come and gone, and now it's up to the local people, and we've got UMD's got a good TV partner that most of their road games end up on TV as well, which is nice, but it's not a perfect system. I certainly understand that. I've seen a lot of complaints on Twitter about it. I would love for the day that these conferences could all come together and come up with some sort of a package where, if we're going to play Big Ten teams, let's make it easier for our fans to find the game to the Big Ten buildings and vice versa. I'd love to see a day like that. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but we have what we have right now. And what I do know is that the Gophers have played 5 straight games on the Big Ice heading into Saturday. And I have a feeling that the home team will try to run them off the rink a little bit in the early part of that game, physical North style, and, make those defensemen feel every puck they have to go retrieve. You guys know how it is. And
oh yeah,
it'll end up being a test of wills, because I've said this before, there aren't a lot of coaches of teams that play on big sheets that do a better job getting their team ready to play on the small sheet than Bob Motzko. He'll have them set to go. They will be prepared. If the Gophers don't play well Saturday, it will not be his fault.
Going on part of that there, with the TV and whatnot, some of it has to do with the old romance of the WCHA, Midwest Sports Channel, Fox Sports North, the Final Five. I really think it got big because of the television, because of how that all came together. And it just seems like some people just haven't adjusted yet.
Well, in the absence of the NHL made college hockey the big thing. It was just the right time. Minnesota moved to the big rink, big crowd. It was the big show in town, and you could just plan on it. I think the landscape has changed quite a bit, but I really enjoy the college game, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Minnesota responds on the smaller rink this weekend. I know the last couple of years, it almost seems like Minnesota's been a better team on the smaller sheet. I think Bob has kind of changed the moxie of his squad to be a better battle team and to play more of a ground game. I think the big question mark, as Bruce was alluding to, is how do Minnesota's defensemen react to getting pounded on every puck retrieval? That's probably the hardest play in hockey, is to pick up that puck knowing you're going to get plastered against the plexi. So that'll be fun to watch, and that's part of what makes this series and this rivalry so fun to watch, and why so many eyeballs were on it in the old WCHA games. Is because these players are really going to be going after it. It means a lot to them.
Well, coaching has changed, because I remember back in the day when Donnie was with the Gophers, and Scotty Owens out at CC. I mean, we would long to have those teams come in our building. And granted, the deck was an even smaller sheet of ice back in the day, but they would love those days, because exactly that. These defensemen have never had this kind of physical play brought to them before. And, especially with Colorado College, it felt like it didn't matter how good those teams were. They'd come in here. We'd beat the snot out of them every time because of exactly that. All we had to do was play physical. They didn't know what to do. The Gophers were a different animal because they were so gosh darn talented every single year, it felt like. Some of those teams didn't respond as well to it, but most of them did. And that's why they were as good as they were.
All right, guys, let's get some predictions for the weekend. Last weekend, Pat Micheletti picked the home teams would lose, and he was correct. I was going to do the same thing. I'm like, he kind of stole my thunder, but that fully credit to Pat Micheletti for picking the road teams winning both games this past weekend, even though one was in overtime. I think it's going to be a little different this weekend. I'm kind of predicting more of the home teams winning, Vigs. Let's get your thoughts.
I kind of feel like the Gophers might be finding their stride a little bit. I thought they played 2 really good games against St. Cloud, but the turnovers were the reason why they lost the games. I felt like they pretty much gave away 4 goals this past weekend. Otherwise, I didn't see St. Cloud really take the pace of play to Minnesota, other than there was a stretch a little bit during the second period on Friday night, and there were a couple shifts here and there where there were opportunities, but I don't think they gave St. Cloud very much to deal with the whole weekend with the puck, and I think they got themselves in trouble. I kind of feel like they're going to take that and build on that, and I think the Bulldogs are going to have their hands full this weekend as the Gophers probably are going to pull out 2 in my mind.
Ooh, sweep. Viggs being brave there. All right, Bruce, your rebuttal.
It's the beer talking.
It's delicious.
I'm sure it is. I think the home teams are both going to win this weekend, but one of the games is going to go overtime, so somebody is winning the season series, which might mean a whole heck of a lot come March. But I'm not telling you which team's winning the season series because I don't have any idea.
I do think we see power plays this weekend. I think these 2 teams are going to be feisty with each other, and I think that advantage might go to Minnesota a little bit because that Myers unit is the best power play unit I've seen from Minnesota for a while.
I would agree. I think UMB's power play right now to be kind, it's a work in progress. It's not off to a great start. It didn't have a strong finish last year. There's a lot of moving parts in there right now. I think they're still trying to figure out where all the pieces fit. So I do think that there's a special teams advantage potentially for the Gophers, although I will say UMB's penalty kill from what I've seen so far, and they've been very disciplined for the most part, but it's vastly improved from what we saw last year. And part of that is last year, they talked about it. I talked to Scott during the summer even, and they felt like there were a lot of bounces that didn't go their way when they're killing penalties. And, it ended up being statistically not a great season for the penalty kill, but they felt like they did a lot of the things that they wanted to do on the kill, and they've got a ton of experience back on the kill with Cates and Latterroot and Colby Roth and the defensemen all being back basically from last season. So I do think UMD's kill can hold up against just about anybody, but they're behind the 8 ball when it comes to special teams right now because I don't know what they're going to get out of the power play.
Mm-hmm. And one thing to Viggs, Minnesota has been pretty disciplined, except for a little bit Saturday night. They're one of the more least penalized teams.
Yep,
but does that change with the rivalry and things heating up?
I think that's kind of a Moscow trait, is not to take too many penalties.
Okay.
He wants to get his team on the power play, and this team seems a little bit more disciplined for the most part. I think some of the penalties they took were either phantom calls, like the Walker penalty. I still don't understand how that was a call. And then the Myers penalty is just a battle going back and forth, and that's going to happen sometimes. And I think,
honestly, that's hockey.
That's hockey.
How many times does some guy do something stupid? The ref doesn't see it. The other guy responds, and he's the one who goes. That's just hockey, unfortunately, on that one. And it's just discipline.
Just leading up to that Myers penalty, you probably could have called 4 or 5 other penalties leading up to that call. That shift was just starting to get to that level of animosity where someone was going to do something that maybe got over the line, and the ref goes, "Hey, I can't let this keep going on. I'm calling that one."
You think the NCHC referees might be doing a little makeup this weekend there, Bruce?
Gosh, I hope not.
I hope not too, but it's like you can see something. It's like, Minnesota got a huge break last week because they're human. They are.
Right. That is human nature would indicate that you have to talk yourself out of doing exactly that, right? Mm-hmm. And I get that. I hope that they're able to. I hope that these games are played cleanly by both teams, and let's all play hard and have fun, but at the same time, let's not do anything stupid. And I would not mind if these games were played largely at 5-on-5 for the most part, I think, because I like UMB more at 5-on-5 right now. So I think stay out of the box is a big point of emphasis for UMD this weekend, which means the Gophers probably have to stay out of the box because, if the Gophers can't stay out of the box, UMD is going to find it too. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
You're not going to have a 7-1 penalty disparity in either of these games. That's just not how hockey's played nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Well, Viggs, what are you working on recently?
We're going to be coming up with a little feature on Cal Dietz and how he's impacting the Gophers' strength conditioning. It might not be this week here, but pretty soon you'll be able to find that in Gopher Puck Live.
And Bruce, how many years is this you calling Bulldog hockey?
This is year 17 that somehow they're still putting up with me. I don't get it. I don't know how this happened, but it's going to keep riding the wave.
Well, I definitely look forward to seeing you Friday night. I'm coming down Friday night for the game. You coming down, Vegas, for the game?
I'll be there Friday. I've got a little bit of mic practice before, but I will be there. Anxious to hear Eric Shearhorn make his radio debut rivaling Bruce this weekend. So,
all right,
fans might want to check that out.
Yeah, Frank Mazzocco is, I believe his daughter's getting married this weekend, so he's missing the entire weekend. So cool. Eric Shearhorn's going to fill in Friday night, and who's
Gigi Marvin will be coming.
Gigi Marvin, there you go. Saturday night up in Duluth. So
awesome.
And actually, we've got Eric scheduled to be on the podcast next week, so we'll have to see how that went for him.
Well, look at you name dropping. I like it.
I know. We do it once in a while here. Well, Bruce, thanks for coming on the show. We always appreciate you, and it's nice to see you now that we kind of do more of a video podcast.
It's nice to be seen. I'll do this anytime you guys want, and I look forward to seeing you in the flesh this weekend at Mariucci, or 3M, or whatever you want to call it.
3M. Well, what is the exact one, Viggs?
3M Marina at Mariucci?
3M Marina at Mariucci.
That's it. I suppose I should probably get that right if I'm going to be on the radio Friday, right?
Probably. It's good to be official.
Yeah.
Unlike me. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the GPL podcast. Of course, we'd like to thank Bruce for coming on the show this week. And like I said, we've got Eric Shearhorn lined up next week to be on the show. For those of you currently watching live on YouTube and on Facebook, we're going to have a very short overtime. And that's about it. And but for the rest of you, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.